All right, if you know me at all, or if you've been following my content at all, you're well aware that I cannot pass up a good argument. And I usually think it was just because I was just had some sort of mental problem, which is still that's still possible. But I find out that it's mostly because I'm Scotch Irish, and the Scots like to argue, and the Irish like to argue. So when you mix those two ethnicities and you come up with the Scotch Irish, we definitely we're like mongrels. We like to argue. We're not going to give up the fight. So I said this popped up on one of my Irish heritage pages that I follow on Facebook here, where someone said, "Know your history, or we will be the villains of the future." And this lady here, she posted this meme here that old Jim Gwynn was sharing. She posted this meme here, and look, just looking at the picture, what you're looking at here is a boatload of Catholic Irish coming into Ellis Island. How do I know they're Catholic? Because it was the Catholic Irish primarily. Not all, not all, not all. I know, okay, but we're not getting into all of the little minutiae of it. Primarily, it was the Catholic Irish that came over during the potato famine and such in Ireland. Long before that, back in the 1600s, though, my Irish ancestors, the Ulster Scots, which were North Ireland, the Ulster Scots were the lowland Scots who went to Ulster County at the behest of the crown to, quote unquote, contend with the wild Irish. They did contend with them. They also intermarried with them, mixed with them, and created this amalgamation of the two cultures. Of course, the Scots and the Irish were basically distant cousins. But they created this Scotch-Irish culture, and then later on they came to the British colonies and into Appalachia to contend with the wild Indians. So that's how the Scotch-Irish are. But the Scotch-Irish, when they came over, they were Protestant because they were lowland Scots who then went to North Ireland. They were Protestants. And what we're looking at right here, the Irish that came over during the potato famine were primarily Catholics. And that Statue of Liberty in the background tells me what era it was that these Irish people on this boat were coming over. So at any rate, this gal, she must be some sort of political progressive or something because she's trying to use the Irish history and the Irish ethos to support and defend illegal immigration. If you claim Irish ancestry, remember your people fled this island desperate, starving, and undocumented. The Scotch Irish didn't. And so, when the Scotch Irish came over through Pennsylvania in the 1600s, they claimed Irish heritage. They considered themselves Irish. My ancestors, my mother, my grandparents, so on and so forth, they would refer to themselves on one breath as Irish and on the other breath as Scotch Irish. This is because when the Scotch Irish, the Protestant Scotch Irish, the Protestant Irish came over, they referred to themselves as Irish. When the era came that you see right here, where the Catholics were coming over, that was when the Protestant Irish began to refer to themselves as Scotch Irish, but it was to delineate the difference between themselves and the Catholic Irish. Okay? I mean, you could call it a race thing or something. I don't know how you would delineate that, but it was because the Protestant Irish wanted to make sure everyone knew that they were not papist. So I may call myself Irish one moment and Scotch Irish the next. Okay, but they definitely claimed Irish ancestry, and the Scotch Irish did not come over here desperate, starving, and undocumented. They didn't. They were sent, not any more than any other colonist. They were sent over here in order to go out into the wilderness, which was basically the Appalachian Mountains, and set up shop to be sort of a buffer zone between the refined white races, the English, the Dutch, the Germans, the English churches like the Episcopalians, the Quakers, the Lutherans, the Puritans, those people, the Episcopalians, those people that were living in the cities, all refined and cultured and stuff. The Scotch Irish went to the Appalachian Mountains to be a sort of a buffer zone between the wild Indians and the refined white folks that lived in the cities. And this is because the Scotch Irish were basically what you would call today rednecks. Okay, that's where the redneck sort of culture comes from. Don't tread on me, and that when you can pry it from my cold dead fingers, that kind of stuff. That's the Scotch Irish. The Scotch Irish invented lynching. They named it after the man who invented it. His last name was Lynch. They invented lynching, and long before it was ever used on black people, lynching was used on other Scotch Irishmen because the Scotch Irish practiced a very vigilante justice, frontier justice. So lynching was originally created for Scotch Irish, what folks call white people today. If you believe that the white race exists, white people using it on other white people. So the Scotch Irish were just a very brutal, brutal people. You won't find very many sculptures, paintings, poems, or novels that were created by the Scotch Irish. We just weren't known for that. Anyway, and along we go. So anyway, we did not, the Scotch Irish didn't come desperate, starving, and undocumented. That was the Catholic Irish, and they were actually documented. You can't honor that history and support the far right. Yes, you can. This is, I guess, has moved from the fallacy known as the no true Scotsman fallacy, which is where someone trying to defend against your argument by saying, well, yeah, but they're not really Christian. Well, yeah, but they're not really American. Well, they're not really Scotsman. They're not really Irish. A real Scotsman wouldn't do that. And so that's what she's saying here. It's a completely fallacious argument. It's the one true Scotsman, but in her case, she would call it the one true Irishman, I guess. You can't honor that history and support the far right. You can't be Irish and a MAGA either. I guess this lady, you talk about a rogue woman. You talk about a feminist here. Here this woman is, Leah M. Delaney. Here she is thinking she's the gatekeeper of who can and can't be Irish. Oh, the all damn audacity, right? You can't be Irish and MAGA either. You've forgotten who your people were. We were the refugees once. So, okay, so I'm reading through this and I'm like, man, whatever. Well, old Luke pops up down here. Old Luke Horgan. Yeah, Luke Horgan. The Irish were the first slaves. No, they weren't. The Irish were the first slaves in America, and they were called death ships. I'm first generation Irish American. Do you see how that fallacy pops out right there? I'm first generation Irish American. So what? Doesn't mean anything. So you're first generation Irish American. You can still be wrong. That's not an argument, before posting something. So here he goes to gatekeep. So all the feminine communication and thinking is just a wash here. Before posting something about the Irish, learn all of Irish history, you. Oh, what? I'm going to wag my finger at you some more. You were a naughty, naughty boy. Now go on, now the lot of you. So you know me, I'm straight and to the point sometimes. I said, that's not true. To which old Lukey Dookie, he says, yes, it is true. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. Not an argument either. It's true. Go look it up. Anytime someone is making a claim to you and you challenge the veracity of their claim and their response includes the command for you to go look it up, it means that they don't know the information. If they knew the information and they had an argument assembled in their mind that they truly understood, then they would give you that argument. They would give it to you forthwith. They would just lay the smack down on you with their argument. And then just a few sentences just show to you and the whole world that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's not that hard to do. See, but he doesn't do that. What does he say? Go look it up. Like your mom and daddy would tell you when you were a little kid and you asked them a question that they didn't know the answer to. Something to do with homework or something. Or something just out of the blue that they didn't know anything about, but they didn't want to just say, man, if I know, I'm a dummy. They'd say, go look it up. Go to the library. Go read a book. They're just trying to hide their weaknesses. And that's what people are doing when they say this. Go look it up. They changed it to indentured servant. Not true. Not true. He just pulled that out of his ass. He just made it the hell up. To indentured servant to cover up the truth. Who is they? It's just absurd. To cover up the truth. you number first generation Irish American. That doesn't mean anything to me. My family fought for the freedom of Ireland. Well, your family probably didn't fight for you to be a dumbass, sir. But okay, so we just scroll right on along here. It's going to scroll up some more here in a minute. So then I hit improve it. Because listen, Lukey Dookie Pookie, Shamuki, you being a first generation Irish American doesn't mean anything. The fact that you're going to refer to yourself as Irish American tells me you don't know anything. Because you're not an Irish American. And if you carried in you the actual like ethos of the Irish or the Scotch Irish, because they're pretty much the same thing, then you would know, then you wouldn't be calling yourself an Irish American. You wouldn't be doing that. So this dude comes back and says, it's Irish history. Read it. It is not Irish history. And there's no sense in me trying to go back and read something that doesn't even exist. The fact of the matter is that the Irish did come over as indentured servants. And they came over as indentured servants, many of them fleeing poverty and very dire situations. But they did not come over as slaves that were then somehow or another in the record, whoever they is, this celestial, all-powerful they, did not go back and change it over to slaves. They didn't do that. But even if the Irish had come over as slaves, if you go back to the Scotch Irish, to the 1600s, if they did come over as actual slaves, they didn't come over as America's first slaves. It just didn't happen. It's just not true. And this guy can't prove it. And I'm waiting to see him prove it. I know it's not true. Well, dang, if you know it's not true, then why don't you just present the evidence to prove it's not true? Well, because that's logically impossible. According to logic, it's impossible to prove that something is not true. See, you can't prove a negative. See, because all someone has to do is say, well, there's information out there, you just haven't found it yet. And then you end up on this continual search for the information. And it ends up placing you're the person who is taking the negative side of it. You're negating the claim. But it lays the onus at your feet to either prove or disprove that person's argument when they're the one making the claim. When they're making the claim, they're making the positive assertion. They're making the positive claim that, in this case, the Irish were America's first slaves. That's the claim. It's up to him to provide the evidence that the Irish were America's first slaves. They weren't. Now, when they came over here, they weren't even considered white people. The English, the British, the Germans, the Dutch, those people, they didn't consider Irish white people. That part's true. But they were not America's first slaves. But it falls to him. The onus falls to him to prove his claim. It doesn't fall to me to disprove it. If he can't prove his claim, then his claim has failed. It's just that simple, and I'm Dane.